Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, our signing day recruiting capsules. We got another one coming for you. I'm Marc Givler. We got Kevin Noon here, as always, on these. It's a big day for college football. You know, this is the future of everyone's program, and people are getting excited about, the next big names in the program. And we're going to talk about a guy who I think has quietly been sort of a guy that is getting people at Ohio State excited. I think this is a guy that, maybe hasn't gotten the fanfare of some other players, but I think, again, if you ask some people in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, I think they're about as excited about this kid as just about anyone in the class. And that is Calvin Simpson-Hunt, 4-star corner, Waxahachie, Texas. Interesting player on several levels, but first thing I want to talk about, maybe one of the quietest kids I've ever covered. I kind of need to see him show up on campus. I need to go to a practice and watch him or something to kind of, prove he exists, because he's not an interviews guy. He's not really a social media guy. Like, it's kind of almost surprising that we even found out that he committed to Ohio State in the first place. Just very, very, very low key, but tremendous athlete. 6 feet tall, 195 pounds, has steadily moved up the recruiting rankings. You can put as much stock into that as you want, but has steadily moved up the rankings, is essentially a top 100 guy at this point, and a lot of people have him as kind of a top 100 guy. So I know Ohio State likes him very much too, so that's the most important thing. But definitely a guy who maybe flew under the radar because of how quiet he is. But Kevin, just your thoughts on what they're getting here.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a one-time Texas Tech commit, and Ohio State got involved and managed to get that visit. And, funny story. I mean, Ohio State seemed to have, the flip secured, and then Texas Tech got him on the phone. I'm assuming, we don't necessarily know all the details there, and got him to reconsider. And I think he reconsidered for all of, 36 hours, 48 hours, and then finally made the flip to Ohio State. And I don't think I've heard the name Calvin Simpson-Hunt mentioned since. So, we've certainly, seen a lot of kids in this class that have been very low drama, very low maintenance, at least on the surface. And then there have been a couple that have been the opposite of that. But, when it comes to Simpson-Hunt, I think Ohio State is getting themselves, a really solid player, a top 100 player in a huge position of need, because you always are going to need corners. And we've seen that point blank this year, when Ohio State really only had a room with 6 corners in it, and really never saw them all healthy at the same point. And when they did, I mean, it still didn't necessarily work out. So, this is going to be an opportunity for them to add to some of the depth that they have in there. I mean, because you're still kind of waiting on guys like Jair Brown and other young guys to be able to really fit into these big roles. So I think it's a really solid get. I agree with you. I've heard the same things, that people around the Woody are going to be very excited about what Simpson-Hunt is bringing. And now that he's a signed prospect, we're going to get to hear what really kind of went into that.
Yeah, look, the physical profile is really impressive. He's a big kid. He's 6 feet tall. He's 195 pounds. He's a big physical kid, but he can really run. Personal best, 10.6 700 meter, 21.77 200 meter. So he's an excellent track athlete on top of having that size. And then you watch the film, and he's got ball skills. He's got instincts. He's physical. So there's a lot to like here. And even though Perry Eliano was like brought in as the safeties coach and Tim Walton's the corners coach, and kind of been splitting the secondary up, this was kind of a Perry Eliano special on this one. And again, he's done a really good job evaluating over the years, and Cincinnati's kind of group has been proof of that. So if you think Perry Eliano knows what he's doing and has an eye for this, and then you go and you pop in the tape and then you see the measurables, there's a lot of reason for optimism here. And again, this has been quietly one of those kids. There's a couple of them in every class where you kind of hear these little rumbling. You talk to people around the Woody, and you talk to people that would know, the situations over there. And this is a guy that always kind of comes up when we start talking about, okay, who's maybe a sleeper or two in this class, who's maybe better than people think, they are in this class. And this is a common name for that category. So I'm going to roll with that as well. Like I said, I like what I've seen on film, and I really like the physical profile here. Kevin, we've spent a lot of time in Texas over the years. Um, I've heard of Waxahachie. I could not point it out on a map. I don't know. I'm assuming it's DFW. It may not be. It may be like J.K. Dobbins, where it's just its own little place in the middle of nowhere, LaGrange. So I am completely ignorant on Waxahachie, Texas. I feel like we've covered from maybe the central half, the entire eastern half of the state. I feel we've covered by car over the years, and I just don't know if we've ever been through Waxahachie.
We have. We
Okay.
have. It is a southern outer suburb of Dallas. It's off of 35E. So if you're on your way down to Waco, if you know the interstates in Texas, there's 35E that goes through Dallas and 35W that goes through Fort Worth, and they converge in Waco. But you will go through Waxahachie on going up to Dallas. So like we've done the Houston to Dallas corridor before. You go right through Waxahachie, and it is also the home of Meat Church, who does a lot of seasonings and stuff in the barbecue worlds. And I had an opportunity about 2 years ago. I thought I was going to be able to stop out that way. Just ran out of time because I really wanted to go stop by Meat Church and pack my whole suitcase filled with seasonings, but they would be like, "That's not oregano."
There you go. Kevin Noon, producer, beat reporter, barbecue expert, and apparently expert on all things Waxahachie, Texas. So you lived out in Dallas though, so
I did.
you know the metro area. So yeah, so that's where it is on the map. So I would have failed that. I would have guessed DFW area, but there's no way I could have pointed it to you on a map.
Just
So.
kind of south of DeSoto. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
still a
And we've
little
been
bit.
there.
I mean, if you just go straight south from DeSoto, you're pretty much there.
We've been there. I think the bottoms of your shoes are actually still on that field from that July camp where it was about 125 degrees on the turf. I think your shoes were melting.
Oh, geez, and that was we've been to some camps in Texas. We've been to some camps across the nation. That was probably one of the hottest camps that I've ever been to. When your feet are burning on the bottom, and you're like, "I've got shoes on," and they're not necessarily old shoes that have holes or whatever in them. It was terrible, and we had to make it all the way up to Rockwall that night because that's where we were staying, and then we left from there. It was a rough one. It was a rough one.
Yeah. So Texas pipeline still open for the Buckeyes. Calvin Simpson-Hunt. And maybe that's why I came to Columbus. It's God, that is a humid part of the country. So maybe you wanted just a little bit cooler, a little bit more seasonal weather in Columbus versus staying down there in Texas. That's what we'll roll with. But since we don't know if he exists, to ask him if that's why he went to Ohio State. So very quiet kid. Very talented kid. I think will be a really key component of this recruiting class. But we're going to wrap this one up. We'll move on to the next one here soon. BuckeyeHuddle.com for all your signing day needs. Hit us up on the message board with questions, analysis, everything else on the site today. YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle for all of your video needs. And again, if you want to listen to these on audio version, we do have this in the podcast feeds on all the podcast platforms. So appreciate everyone watching and listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.